Welcome to Monday, April 3rd, 2023. Your Day with the Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Also being brought to you by WYDOT. Call 511 or go to yoroad.info for the latest road conditions, as there'll be a lot happening over the next 72 hours when it comes to travel across the region. So the early April storm we've been talking about will be really commencing today and continuing through midweek for the region. High impacts are coming, travel, livestock impacts, especially in the areas over the last couple of days we highlighted over central and east central and southwest, central and southwest areas of Wyoming, into North Dakota, South Dakota, and parts of Nebraska, areas hardest hit. There'll be a lot of snow. There will be some areas 1-2 feet or more in some areas. There'll be a lot of wind and very cold air is associated with this storm for April. So for some of you, it's going to be rough and tumble for the next 72 hours. For areas along and south of I-70, you're going to dodge the bullet from the storm, as well as areas on the far northwest edge. But travel and livestock interest will be very high. But we do have a major weather pattern shift after the storm passage. And you know what? It's actually good news for those of you tired of the winter weather, and I know that's 99.9% of you. An area of high pressure and a warming trend will develop for several days, and we'll talk about that here at the end of the podcast. So I'm not all gloom and doom with this podcast this morning. It'll start that way, though. Here is some area of cloudiness with the storm just getting started. For those of you who saw the podcast over the weekend, we talked about two phases of the storm. This is phase one, with overrunning snow developing across central and northern areas of Wyoming back into eastern Utah and the Wasatch Front and eastern areas of Idaho. So this area of low pressure that's digging into the Great Basin right now is pumping warmer, moist air over and top colder air that's up here, producing snow over parts of southwest and central areas of Wyoming. But the low will swing south and east and will move across the region. And as it does so, look at all the winter weather advisories and warnings are in effect. The orange area here represents a blizzard warning that's in effect for many areas of North Dakota, South Dakota, and north central Nebraska. The blue indicates winter weather advisories in effect. The pink are winter storm warnings. So the winter storm warnings are quite extensive here across the region with this storm as it comes in. These are advisories for high fire danger and very windy conditions on the south edge of the storm over New Mexico, West Texas, those areas there. When storms go to the north, the southern end of the storms, especially in springtime, are the ones that end up with the wind. So there's the 500 millibar low. This is by 6 p.m. tonight, digging into Utah, so western areas, during the evening and overnight hours. And this will initiate the second phase of the system as it intensifies and becomes a deep storm by Tuesday evening over portions of western Nebraska. The counterclockwise flow just going to bring in some very cold air on the backside of the system. And when the low pressure system intensifies, that's when the wind on the plains really will be cranking up, coming in from the north-northwest on the backside of the storm. And then the storm intensifies even more by noon Wednesday, really heading up into the upper plains. And here we go again. Here we go again with another outbreak of severe weather. Now, I know this part of the country has been battered and bruised with really bad tornado and thunderstorm activity. It's going to happen again here with this storm, but there is a break in the severe weather for that part of the country coming with our break in the weather here later on. That will show you here in a minute. And there's that severe weather outbreak that is going to be happening tomorrow in the Midwest as the low here heads up into the upper plain states. Basically, it's a classic setup once again. But to remind everybody, this is the time of year where the tornado probabilities are really, really high. From a climatological standpoint, this time of year, when you get these strong winter-like storms coming out of the Rockies, you historically have a high probability for tornado activity in the Midwest and the southern plains. But hopefully this will be the last of these nasty systems here for a little bit. Now, the precipitation amounts are very impressive and they look very similar to what we've showed you over the last couple of days, a southwest to northeast trending axis of the heaviest snowfall. It looks like the Colorado Front Range is going to dodge the bullet completely. We're still expecting the Laramie to Cheyenne areas to be on the razor's edge. Just a 5 to 10 mile shift in the storm north or south can mean either very little snow and a lot of wind for extreme southern Wyoming's I-80 corridor, or several inches of snow and a lot of wind and a lot of cold. But I-25, Interstate 90 up here, I-80 in this section here, going to be looking at high impacts and very poor travel conditions. And there's your snowfall axis of heavier snow there, and focusing in a little bit. This is using the 10-to-1 ratio, and even using the 10-to-1 ratio, you're looking at a foot and a half of snow in some locations. The bullseye continues to be for the heaviest snow amounts right here. And keep in mind, this also is probably going to get into Platte County around the Wheatland areas, north of Torrington, up into that Pine Ridge area. That's going to be a very bad area of heavy snow and wind. South Pass, the Fremont County areas, the Casper areas, back into Uinta, Sublette County, Sweetwater counties, northern Carbon County, northern Albany County, and then up into the Black Hills area up here, you're really going to get it. The northern areas you go north of I-90, snowfall amounts really drop off. You get south of I-80, snow amounts really drop off. Here's the Kuchera method. Again, as we've shown you over the last couple of days, don't put too much stock in these numbers, but it shows you what the high end of snowfall totals could be in some isolated areas. Now let's talk temperature. These are the temperature anomalies tomorrow. By tomorrow afternoon, very cold air with this system, very warm air, so you can see why we're going to have a severe weather outbreak in the Midwest again. And as that cold air stretches east, this is for Wednesday. However, by Friday, notice we start to see some warmer air come on in. We got a little bit of a Chinook and a warm up here. You might notice, why is it warm here? Why is it warmer here? But why is it showing cold here? Well, it's because there's going to be new snow on the ground, and that's going to cause those temperatures there to be slowly, let's say, warming up a lot more slowly. And you can really see that when you see what happens with the high pressure ridge that develops. Believe it or not, for the first time in a long time, we've got an H coming into the western areas of the United States over Easter weekend. We're going to have a little bit of weather up here in the northern Rockies, but for the most part, we're going to see a high pressure ridge developing late this week and over the weekend, and that's going to lead to a break in the weather. We could go several days in the west with high pressure, moderating temperatures, and no major storms. So we've got to get through this week, and then we can kind of catch our breath and kind of maybe actually have some weather that matches up with the calendar a little bit better than we've seen lately. But we've got to get through this storm, and then this storm is enough to shake things up a little bit, cause a readjustment in the pattern, and lead to a gradual warming trend after 3 or 4 days of unseasonably cold weather again. And this is by Sunday afternoon. So by Easter Sunday, areas that have snow on the ground will be colder. But look at the warmth spreading into the west, fingering in those areas. So as that snow cover begins to melt off more, those snow-covered areas will be warming up eventually. Be ready for some very active weather over the next 72 hours. We'll update you tomorrow.